5 years ago, he walked away with millions in his bank account, and a silence that haunted him every night. No calls. No messages. No explanation. She simply disappeared from his life after their divorce. But on a rainy evening, the millionaire finally stood outside her door again. What he carried in his hand wasn't money, flowers, or even an apology. It was something far more powerful, something that would finally break the silence she had held for 5 long years. And when she saw it, everything changed. Like and subscribe to Heartfelt Stories Hub. Adrian Cole had everything people dream about. Expensive cars lined up in his driveway, a glass mansion overlooking the ocean, and a business empire that news channels talked about almost every week. People called him brilliant, unstoppable, and lucky. But none of them knew that every success he achieved carried a quiet shadow from the past. 5 years earlier, Adrian's life had been very different. He wasn't yet a millionaire. He was an ambitious man working day and night to build a company that most people thought would fail. During those days, the one person who stood beside him was his wife, Elena. Elena believed in him when nobody else did. She stayed awake late at night helping him prepare presentations, encouraged him after failed meetings, and even sold some of her jewelry when Adrian needed money to keep the company alive. She never complained, never asked for anything in return. For her, love meant supporting the person you believed in, but success can change people in ways they don't even notice. When Adrian's company finally exploded into a global success, everything moved quickly. Investors, meetings, interviews, and constant travel filled his life. The man who once spent evenings talking with Elena now barely had time to sit for dinner. At first, Elena understood. She was proud of him. She told friends, he worked hard for this. But slowly, she began to feel invisible in his life. Adrian didn't notice the silence growing between them. He thought providing luxury was enough. A bigger house, designer clothes, vacation she never asked for. He believed these things showed love. One night changed everything. Adrian came home late after an important business deal worth millions. He expected Elena to be excited, but instead he found her sitting quietly at the dining table. The food had gone cold. "We need to talk," she said softly. Adrian sighed, tired and impatient. "Can it wait?" Today was a huge day. Elena looked at him in a way he had never seen before. Not angry, not sad, just tired. "That's the problem," she said. "Every day is huge for your business. But none of them are for us anymore." The conversation that followed turned into an argument neither of them truly wanted. Words were spoken in frustration. Adrian accused her of not understanding his responsibilities. Elena said she felt alone even though she was married. Weeks later, the divorce papers were signed. Adrian told himself it was the right decision. He buried himself deeper into work, convincing himself that success was worth the sacrifice. But after the divorce, Elena disappeared completely. She changed cities. She stopped answering messages. Even mutual friends didn't know where she had gone. At first, Adrian didn't chase after her. His pride stopped him. Years passed, the company grew bigger. The money multiplied. Yet every quiet night reminded him of the same thing. The only person who had believed in him before the world did was gone. Then one day, something unexpected happened. While cleaning old files in his office, Adrian found a small box he hadn't opened in years. Inside it were old photos, handwritten notes from Elena, and something else that made his heart stop. A letter he had never read. It was dated the night before their divorce. With trembling hands, Adrian opened it. The words inside weren't filled with anger. They were filled with love, and a secret he had never known. By the time he finished reading, Adrian realized something that shook him deeply. He had misunderstood everything, and for the first time in 5 years, he knew he had to find her. It took Adrian 3 months to locate Elena. She wasn't living in a luxurious neighborhood or a big city anymore. Instead, she lived in a quiet small town where people knew each other by name. She worked at a modest community center, helping children with art and reading. When Adrian saw her from across the street for the first time in years, he almost didn't recognize her. She looked calmer, simpler, but also stronger. The confident businessman who negotiated million-dollar deals suddenly felt nervous, like a young man again. For 2 hours, he sat in his car thinking about what to say. Apologies felt too small. Explanations felt too late. Finally, as rain began to fall, Adrian stepped out of the car and walked toward her home. His heart pounded with every step. He knocked on the door. A few seconds later, the door opened and Elena stood there. For a moment, neither of them spoke. 5 years of memories hung silently between them. Elena looked surprised, but she didn't show anger. Just the same quiet calm he remembered Adrian, she said softly, yet he had imagined this moment many times. But the words he planned suddenly disappeared. I know I'm late, he said quietly. Very late. Elena didn't respond. She simply waited at Adrian, then did something she didn't expect, that he didn't give a speech. He didn't try to justify himself. Instead, he slowly held out something he had brought with him, the letter, the same letter she had written years ago. I finally read it, Adrian said, for the first time since he arrived. Elena's expression changed, her eyes widened slightly. I thought you threw it away, she whispered. I almost did, Adrian admitted. But reading it made me realize something. I never truly listened to you back then. The letter had revealed that Elena hadn't left because she stopped loving him. She left because she felt she was becoming a stranger in his life, and she believed that maybe losing her would make him realize what truly mattered. But the biggest truth inside the letter was something else. Elena had written that even after the divorce, she would always hope Adrian would become not just successful, but kind again, like the man she married. Standing there in the rain, Adrian continued speaking. I spent 5 years building bigger companies, he said. But I realized I failed at the most important thing in my life. Elena stayed silent, listening. Then Adrian showed her the real reason he came, that he handed her a folder. Inside were documents, not about business deals or investments. They were plans for a foundation. A foundation created in her name. Adrian spoke gently. You always wanted to help people, especially kids who couldn't afford education. I never paid attention back then. But I remembered. Elena's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. The foundation was designed to build community learning centers in small towns, just like the one she worked at, and Adrian had named it after her. At that moment, the silence she had held for 5 years finally broke. Tears slowly filled her eyes. You remembered that? She asked quietly. I remembered everything, Adrian said. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Elena finally said the words Adrian never expected to hear again. You changed. Adrian shook his head slightly. I'm trying to. The rain had stopped, but the emotional storm between them had just begun to clear. They talked for hours that night, about the past, about mistakes, about growth. Adrian didn't ask for forgiveness immediately. He knew trust couldn't be rebuilt in one evening, but he showed something more important than words. He showed effort, and sometimes, one sincere gesture can heal what years of silence could not. Success, money, and fame can build a powerful life, but they cannot replace the people who believed in you when you had nothing. The true measure of a person isn't how high they rise, but whether they remember the hands that helped them climb. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is go back, admit they were wrong, and choose to become better.